Hello, everyone, and thank you for coming to this year's COM celebration. My name is Jack Hale. I am a senior in the Mediated Communication course path within the School of Communication, and I'm also a member of the Ash Scholars program. And the Ash Scholars program has been working with the School of Communication for the past 2 years on a research project. And today I am here to present to you one half of the results that we have from the past 2 years since we started this project. Uh, the half of these results that I'm going to be sharing with you today will be over examining the portrayals of race within Latinx-focused news outlets. Now, to start, I'm going to kind of need to define why we think this study is necessary, why we are doing it. So to begin, we'll discuss the Latinx community as they're portrayed in media. Now, Latinx people are vastly underrepresented in most media, especially primetime television and news programming. Additionally, Latinx people are highly sexualized and viewed as low-class workers. They're frequently represented as illegal immigrants and criminals, and women are frequently sporting scandalous outfits and typically feature thin body types. Now, these are all fairly negative stereotypes, and there are consequences of these. The first of which being is that the stereotypical portrayals of Latinx people in media has been shown to lead to negative perceptions of the group, leading news consumers to blame minority ethnic groups inaccurately for society's problems. Much research has focused on the cognitive, affective, and behavioral effects of this biased news on white audiences. However, little is known about how people of color are affected by news sites that primarily post about news about minorities. And that is the purpose of this study, is to kind of get into the effects that the portrayals of people of color in minority-focused news outlets has on racial self-esteem. So what is our methodology? What are we doing here? How are we doing? First off, us, the researchers, have performed a content analysis of 600 articles pulled from Latinx-focused news websites. Now, we coded these articles for their tone, as well as the tone of their headlines, and we coded for the presence of racial stereotype within the articles. Additionally, we identified characters within the articles and how they were portrayed. So what do we have? What have we gotten from these this content analysis that we've done? Starting off with the overall trends in the data, our data determines that Latinx-oriented news sites have more positive representations of Latinx individuals and feature more Latinx individuals overall than traditional news or Black-oriented news sites do. Moving on to the prevalence of Latinx characters in Latinx-oriented news, 600 Latinx-oriented news stories and 600 Black-oriented news stories were studied, and far more Latinx characters were featured in Latinx-oriented news when compared to Black-oriented news. Additionally, Latinx characters are overrepresented compared to their overall proportion of the United States population according to the census, as we can see here, table. Now, moving on to portrayals of Latinx individuals in Latinx-oriented news. As we found, our data determines that stories featuring Latinx characters are more positive. According to a one-way ANOVA analysis that we've done and also a post-hoc test, these two revealed differences on all comparisons between stories featuring Latinx, Black, and white characters. Now, when measured on a Likert type scale, moving from 1 being very positive to 5 being very negative, stories mentioning a Latinx person were rated on average around a 2.8. Stories that mentioned a Black person were rated on average about a 3.19, and stories that mentioned a white person were rated on average a 3.59. And here we have a table that shows us in these Latinx sources how many characters of the different racial backgrounds the United States Census identifies that we did find in these stories. And as we can see, Latinx characters make up a vast majority of the characters that we found. And as I said, are featured much more positively than people of other racial or ethnic origins. So let's discuss what are some of the implications of this study. So as a result of increased exposure to Latinx characters in headlines and stories, the overall portrayals of Latinx characters were more positive, especially since the content is curated by and for Latinx individuals. We'd also see that Latinx characters received a more positive portrayal than their white counterparts, as a result of the access to personable and often untold details that serve to humanize the Latinx characters in the stories. And lastly, since the research samples came from Latinx-oriented news sites, there was an apparent overrepresentation of Latinx characters that drastically differed from the actual Latinx population in traditional news outlets. Thank you so much for tuning in to this presentation. Sadly, I won't be able to continue along with this research study in the ensuing, I think, 3 or 4 years that it has left as I am graduating. But I've been very happy to be a part of this project, and I'm very excited to see what kind of results that we will get as time goes on. So once again, thank you, and have a great rest of your day.